The golden light slowly dissipated between the sky and the earth. Whether it was Lecent, Dylan, Rosette, Leo, and others, they all looked at Renaud, who stood there proudly with a cold expression, feeling uncomfortable in their hearts. Confidence. As the people closest to Renaud, they all know Renaud's strength very well. Renaud 3 years ago was only at the same level as Dylan, and then Dylan was competing with Nowitzki, the #1 master in the Kingdom of Wisconsin. I learned a lot from the battle. The Emperor Spirit Master finally advanced to the 7th level of intermediate level. Coupled with the fact that Renaud's right arm is broken, Dylan can be said to be completely ahead of Renaud in terms of strength. However, what everyone did not expect was that after Renaud returned after 3 years of absence, not only was his arm healed, but he was also promoted to the 8th level of the Imperial Spirit Master. This made Rost, Dylan, and others confused. Humph, Roosevelt and Hoover of the Decray family, come at me if you have the guts to kill Jason, you are just asking for death. At the door of the mansion, Renaud snorted coldly, looking at the crowd in the distance. One by one, the warning in his eyes was obvious. Regarding the arrogance of Roosevelt and Hoover today, Renaud just wanted to teach them a lesson at first, and did not think of killing anyone. After all, although the Decray family was arrogant, they did not hurt anyone in this year. A member of the Todd family and the Decray family is also a big family. Now that the Todd family already has an enemy like the Dawes family, it is not wise to make random enemies again. So at first, although Renaud knocked Roosevelt away with one palm, he didn't kill him much. But the previous move of Roosevelt actually trying to kill Jason made Renaud completely furious. Dragons have reverse scales, and Jason it's Renaud's reverse scale. With Renaud's powerful perception, he can naturally feel that there are many spies from other forces in the mainland among the crowd around here. They all come with various purposes, in order to prevent anyone from daring to attack Jason again. Unfavorable, Reynolds decided to kill a chicken to scare other monkeys. Unfortunately, Roosevelt and Hoover of the Decray family became the chickens that were killed. In the crowd not far away, Parsons of the Dawes family was shaking all over, looking at Renaud with horror in his eyes. It took 3 years to advance from the 7th level low-level Emperor Spiritual Master to the 8th level low-level Emperor Spiritual Master. At this moment, Parsons only had the following thoughts in his mind: such an idea. With the identity and status of Parsons as a member of the Dawes family, one of the 4 major families of the Cairo Empire, there are countless geniuses he has heard and seen. However, no matter what kind of genius, Parsons was shocked. It cannot be compared with the progress of Renaud at this moment. The 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master is an important dividing line for spiritual masters. After a spiritual master reaches the lower level of the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master, each subsequent level up will be more difficult than all previous promotions. And NBA, it takes a lot of time, it's very short, but after being promoted to the 7th level of the Imperial Spiritual Master, it's difficult to make progress, and it often takes decades to make a little progress. In addition, it is even more difficult to improve in one realm for a lifetime. This can be seen from the situation of the Northwest Kingdoms and the territory of chaos. In the thousands of years since the establishment of the Northwest Kingdoms, there has never been an 8th level Imperial Spiritual Master, and the territory of chaos is not much better. This shows that it is difficult for an Imperial Spiritual Master to advance to the Imperial Spiritual Master level. Even in the 4 major empires of the mainland, 8th level Emperor Spiritual Masters can be considered top masters are rampant. In fact, the reason why there are masters at the level of Emperor Spiritual Masters in places like the 4 empires is not because of their talents and intelligence, but mostly because the families and forces of the 4 empires on the mainland have a large amount of resources and powerful spiritual beings. It is because of the medicine man that we can succeed. Therefore, when Renaud advanced from the 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master to the 8th level Emperor Spiritual Master in 3 years, the speed of advancing to the 1st level in 1 year really frightened Parsons. And NBA, after spending 10 years between the ages of 30 and 40, one can see the terror of Renault by comparing them with each other. In fact, the reason why Renault advanced so quickly was because of the god-killing Nadim. The basic control of the secret method of the metal spiritual master is from shallow to deep, one by one, so that the cultivator can slowly master the true meaning of the metal law. At the same time, in the metal space where he can practice 10 times, Renault is almost as good as practicing in the outside world. It has been many years, but Parsons and others have no idea at all. The family also told me that as long as they pay attention to Jason, they don't need to care about Renault at all. The family was too careless. A low-level Imperial Spiritual Master has been promoted to an 8th-level Imperial Spiritual Master. Such a genius will not know how far he will grow in 10 years. Oh my God, how could the family offend such an enemy? In the crowd, Parsons was trembling in his heart. He didn't dare to stay here any longer, and secretly left the scene. Okay, everyone, please leave. At the end of the street, Nexant, after recovering from the shock, he came to the door of the Todd family's mansion and spoke to the people surrounding him. As the king of the Kingdom of Orlando, Lecent was still very powerful among the people. After the words fell, the people who were still gathered here dispersed at an extremely fast speed. Master Renault, Master Jason, you two are back. Lecent said to Renault and Jason, screaming excitedly. In the past, Lecent called Jason Master, but when he called Renault, he called him by his first name. However, after learning that Renault was promoted to the 8th-level Emperor Spiritual Master, his title became Lord Renault. Haha, Your Majesty Lecent, thank you for your concern earlier. Renault and Jason returned the greeting. Renault and Jason were quite satisfied with Nexant's performance. Whether it was the time when the Dawes family attacked or the visits from major forces over the past year or so, Nexant never acted under pressure from the outside world. What happened to the Todd family? Okay, everyone, don't stand at the door. Let's talk after we go in. Jason said in the crowd. Haha, Master Jason, you have just come back. People from a family must have a lot to say. I won't disturb you here. When you are free, come to my palace. I will hold a banquet to welcome you. Sighed Lecent said with a smile. Well, Your Majesty Lecent, my father and I will go to the palace to visit you tomorrow. Jason nodded. Lecent also exchanged greetings with Leo, Rost and others, and then left the Todd family with the palace guards. Dylan and Shadow also left here with Lecent. Let's go in and meet you. Renault and Jason walked into the mansion first. Rost and Leo looked at each other and followed closely behind them. Reynold, how did you get promoted to an 8th-level Imperial Spiritual Master? In the family hall, Leo, Rost and others all looked at Renault in surprise. Haha, it's a long story. Renault looked at the people in the family hall and said vaguely. It's not that he doesn't believe the people in the family, but if he really wants to talk about the whole thing, if it comes out, everything in the territory of chaos will also be exposed. Now the territory of chaos is in a period of rapid development. Although it is powerful, it is not strong enough in front of the huge forces in the mainland. If all the tribesmen present know about it, if it was accidentally spread after the meeting, it would inevitably cause some trouble. Therefore, Renault was prepared to talk about these things to Leo and Rost when they were alone. By the way, Uncle, you are still a 6th-level Senior Spiritual Master, haven't you been promoted to a 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master? Jason said in the crowd. After hearing Jason's words, Leo couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, promoted to the 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master? I want to, too. In the past 3 years, I have attacked the 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master twice, but both times without success. It was too difficult for the 7th-level Imperial Spirit Master. Speaking of this, Leo couldn't help but show a trace of sadness on his face. Back then, his talents were not much different from Renault's. Now Renault has become an 8th-level Emperor Spiritual Master, but he is a 7th-level Emperor. He has not reached the level of a Spiritual Master, which makes him always have a regret in his heart. Alas, if I can advance to the 7th level of Imperial Spiritual Master in this life, I will be satisfied. Leo sighed with emotion, and he also knew that then as he continues to grow older, if he, who has been stuck as a 6th level Senior Spiritual Master for many years, cannot advance to a 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master within a few years, he may not have much hope in the future. Uncle, this time you accidentally got a bottle of 6th grade high-grade Emperor Breaking Potion outside. You took it and gave it a try. At this moment, Jason took out a bottle of radiant elixir from the space ring and put it in Leo's hand. This bottle of Emperor Breaking Elixir was bought by Jason in exchange for the Cloud Mist Spirit in the territory of Chaos. As a result, one of the many spiritual potions prepared can increase the success rate of a 6th level Senior Spiritual Master to a 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master by 30%. When they were in the territory of Chaos, the Curie family and the Bayuan family also had many problems. The young elder could use it, but Jason didn't take it out in order to leave it for his uncle Leo. This, the Emperor Breaking Potion? What effect? Leo took the banquet-breaking potion from Jason, with a look of astonishment on his face. With his wisdom, he thought of the question Jason asked before, and then heard the name of this elixir. A possibility suddenly appeared in his mind, and his heart could not help but beat. And all the surrounding family members also focused their eyes on Jason's face, full of expectant light. This Emperor Breaking Potion is a 6th level high-grade spiritual potion. As for its efficacy, Uncle, won't you know after taking it? I can guarantee that the efficacy of this Emperor Breaking Potion will definitely surprise you. Jason, he spoke with a smile on his face. Everyone was stunned. Why is this Jason so mysterious? Could it be that this Emperor Breaking Potion really, as its name suggests, can allow Patriarch Leo to break through to the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master realm? It's impossible, right? Everyone couldn't help but feel a little bit of confusion in their hearts. Funny. It's not that the tribesmen present don't believe Jason, it's that they don't dare to think about it at all. It's really too difficult to successfully advance to the 7th level of the Imperial Spiritual Master. The advancement from the 6th level high level to the 7th level low level is not like the previous promotions. This is an important change in the strength of the spiritual master, and it is also the difference between mid-level professionals and high-level professionals. There are no spiritual potions on the mainland that can help 6th level senior spiritual masters advance to 7th level low-level imperial spiritual masters, but any kind of them is extremely difficult to prepare and is not accessible to ordinary people at all. Moreover, the secret recipe of such a powerful elixir is not passed down on the mainland. Generally, only the top masters of the 4 imperial elixir academies may possess such a formula. Otherwise, if such a spiritual potion could be prepared and obtained so easily, 7th level imperial spiritual masters on the mainland would not be so rare. Take it? Leo looked at the Emperor Breaking Potion in his hand that exuded a magnificent glow, and then looked at Jason's confident smile. Okay. He gritted his teeth, then resolutely uncorked the bottle of Emperor Poison and drank it down. The elixir containing rich energy instantly entered his stomach along his throat. Then, Leo sat down cross-legged in the hall, closed his eyes, and started practicing. As soon as he started practicing, he suddenly felt something was wrong. The spiritual power in Leo's body had reached the peak of the 6th level nearly 10 years ago. In the past 10 years, he had tried countless breakthroughs, but every time he failed, the entrance to the 7th level meridian was as if it were made of steel, and was extremely solid. No matter how hard he mobilized his spiritual power to attack, he could not break through the barrier. Although with his continuous cultivation in the past 10 years, the 6th level advanced spiritual power in his body has become more and more condensed, but after the spiritual power intensity in his body reached a high level 3 years ago, no matter how he practices in the future, that spiritual power it was as if it had reached a limit, but it could no longer grow any further. But now, after taking the Emperor Breaking Potion handed to him by Jason, he felt that the extremely familiar 6th-level advanced spiritual power in his body suddenly became different. It was as if the spiritual power in his body had a faint connection with the spiritual elements between heaven and earth. This connection made him feel that his body was in a sea of spiritual elements. A large amount of spiritual elements enveloped him, making him feel extremely comfortable. At the same time, all the pores on the surface of his skin opened at this moment, allowing the 6th-level advanced spiritual power in his body to combine more closely with the spiritual elements in the air. Feeling the changes in his body, Leo, who was originally extremely nervous, suddenly seemed extremely excited at this moment. Compared with the 6th-level senior spiritual master, the 7th-level emperor spiritual master is not only different in the cultivation of meridians, but also the strength of spiritual power. It is also a kind of understanding of the realm. The 7th-level emperor spiritual master can communicate with the world, turn the spiritual elements between heaven and earth for your own use, dissolve them in heaven and earth, and your spiritual power will almost never be exhausted. This is where the 7th-level imperial spiritual master is truly powerful. In the previous few attacks, Leo felt that the spiritual power in his body had completely reached the point of attacking the 7th-level imperial spiritual master. However, the reason why he failed every time was because he could not understand that kind of power. The realm of communicating the spiritual power of heaven and earth. In fact, almost 90% of all spiritual masters who are stuck at the 6th level of advanced strength are due to this reason. These high-level spiritual masters practice day and night. Even if they are not good at it, after decades of practice, the spiritual power in their bodies has completely reached the peak of the 6th level. However, their inability to understand the realm has stopped them forever. However, at this moment, Leo finally realized this realm. He is like an Iron Man, sitting there quietly. The energy of his body and the spiritual elements between heaven and earth are completely integrated. If some weak people close their eyes and look only with their spiritual sense, they will find that he couldn't sense where Renault was in the hall at all. At the same time, the peak 6th-level spiritual power in Leo's body began to boil, like a roaring river and a big wave, roaring and rolling forward. Boom! The mountains and rivers shook. In Leo's perception, the entrance to the 7th order meridian appeared in front of him very clearly this time. He could even feel the flaws and weaknesses in the entrance to the 7th order meridian. In the past, it was an extremely strong and unmoving barrier, no matter how it was impacted. This time, it turned into a rotten wooden board, which was constantly shaking under the bombardment of Leo's spiritual power. Leo was overjoyed, and once again mobilized the spiritual power in his body. He fiercely rushed towards the 7th-level barrier. Boom! Suddenly, a huge wave of spiritual power suddenly burst out from the surface of Leo's body. This wave of spiritual power was like a wolf smoke, rising into the sky and towering into the sky. At the same time, all the spiritual elements in the world around the Todd family mansion, where it became violent instantly and swarmed towards Leo's body. At the same time, waves of overwhelming spiritual energy were like waves, spreading out in all directions, with Leo's body as the center. The whole room was filled with violent spiritual elements. The spiritual elements within 100 meters radius formed a huge whirlpool and rushed towards Leo in the center of the vortex, and were then absorbed into his body by Leo. This in the hall, all members of the Todd family looked at this scene in surprise, with extremely shocked lights on their faces. Just when everyone was extremely surprised, Leo, who was sitting there quietly, suddenly levitated out of thin air. His eyes suddenly opened, revealing a terrifying light. I have finally advanced to the 7th level of Imperial Spiritual Master. He was suspended in the air, staring blankly at his hands, his face shining with disbelief, and there were tears glistening in his eyes. Whoosh! He appeared in front of Jason in an instant, and slapped Jason's shoulders heavily with both hands. His nose twitched, and he wanted to say something, but he was too excited to speak. Thank you, Jason, thank you. Finally, he kept uttering the word thank you in his mouth. Although it was simple, everyone could feel his gratitude to Jason from his excited eyes. Jason had a smile on his face. "Uncle, this is your own effort and has nothing to do with me." What the emperor-breaking potion gave Leo was only a 30% success rate. Although it was extremely important, it was Leo himself who played the decisive role. The reason why Jason didn't reveal the effectiveness of the emperor-breaking potion at the beginning was not because of him. Wanting to sell things off is also based on this consideration. In the past 10 years, Leo has attacked the 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master countless times, but they all ended in failure. In his heart, a seed of failure has been planted. If Jason had said it directly before, if the emperor-breaking potion was only 30% effective, Leo, who was worried about gains and losses, might still not succeed. Jason didn't say anything, but he gave Leo something to look forward to. Coupled with the changes brought by the emperor-breaking potion to Leo's body, Leo was full of confidence and was completely promoted to become a 7th level low-level emperor. Spiritualist. While Jason was feeling happy that his uncle had been promoted to the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master, the eyes of other people in the hall looking at Jason changed. They all looked at Jason with burning eyes, filled with excitement. "Haha, our Todd family finally has another 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master," Rost said with a smile on his face. As the actual decision-maker of the family, before Renault appeared, Rost hoped that Leo could become a 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master and take charge of the family. Later Renault appeared, but this wish in Rost's heart never changed. Now that Leo has finally become a 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master, Rost is finally relieved. "By the way, great uncle, how are you doing with the injury you sustained in the battle with Birdsall of the Daos family?" "Let me do it?" Jason asked Rost on the side. "That injury?" Rost smiled on his face. 3 years have passed now, and the injury has long been healed. Although he said this, Rost still couldn't help but reveal a trace of sadness on his face. When the Daos family attacked, Rost and the Shadow Force fought against the Daos family's 7th level intermediate fire-type Imperial Spiritual Master Birdsall. In the end, Rost was seriously injured by the angry Birdsall and almost died. Fortunately, he was a wood. He survived as a spiritual master because of his extremely strong vitality. Now 3 years have passed, and Rost's physical injuries have long since healed. However, the battle that year left his body with permanent consequences. Although his strength has returned to the peak level before the war, his strength will be worse in the future. He could no longer make any progress, which became an eternal regret in his heart. Now that Jason asked, Rost pretended to be completely calm in front of Jason and Renault, but he couldn't help but feel a little sad in his heart. After carefully sensing the situation inside Rost's body, with Jason's attainments and elixirs, he naturally understood Rost's physical condition clearly in an instant. "Uncle, when you come back this time, my father and I also have gifts to give you. Come with me." Withdrawing his hands, Jason spoke to Rost, and then without waiting for the other party to respond, walked out of the hall. For Rost, Jason's heart was full of gratitude. From the first day when he was brought back to the Todd family by his father, Rost's attitude towards him was quite good, and the battle with the Daos family that year, if he had not stepped forward, his father, who was a 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master at the time, would have died in that battle long ago. Therefore, Jason had already decided to come back this time and completely heal Rost's injuries. Seeing Jason's actions, everyone on the field was stunned, even Renault was a little stunned. After everyone looked at each other, they immediately followed Jason and walked out of the hall together. Followed by a large group of people, Jason arrived at a bathing pool in the family mansion. "Replace all the bathing pool with clean water," Jason ordered behind him. "Replace with water?" Everyone's faces were full of doubts, but no one had any objections to Jason's instructions. Soon, under Leo's instructions, the servants of the family filled the bathing pool with extremely clear water. Jason nodded and shook his left hand, and a lot of materials appeared in front of everyone. Then under the astonished eyes of Leo and others, Jason poured all kinds of herbs and powders. After entering the bath, a very strange smell suddenly filled the bath. Gurgling as all the ingredients were added, the water in the pool started to boil. This everyone looked at Jason's actions in confusion. Everyone was able to accept Jason's previous gift of Leo Spirit Potion. After all, Jason was good at spiritual medicine. His attainments are well known even in the entire Northwest countries, but throwing a large amount of materials into the bathing pool made everyone look around in confusion. As the person involved, Rost was also full of doubts. Jason's previous words seemed to be to completely cure him of the hidden disease in his body. However, this treatment usually involves taking elixirs on the Stern continent, but Jason's current behavior makes Rost confused. Do you want me to take a dip in this bathing pool? Is there such a treatment method on the mainland? Rost frowned. Uncle, after I throw this crystal into the pool later, you can soak in it. When everyone was confused, Jason pulled out a volleyball-sized crystal from his body. Blood-red crystal stone. Puff. In full view of everyone, Jason threw the blood-red crystal in his hand directly into the bath. Just when everyone had doubts on their faces, there was a sudden gurgling and a dazzling light came on in the bath. The blue light was very dazzling. Immediately, the entire pool water began to boil crazily, bubbling and exploding continuously. A large amount of green air flow swirled around the surface of the pool, like blue dragons soaring around. An extremely rich wood-type spiritual power was constantly lingering over the pool. Rost, who was standing by the pool, just smelled a trace and felt a sense of relief all over his body. There were hundreds of thousands of pores in his body. They opened up in an instant, feeling extremely refreshed. This as Rost's eyes widened, and he stared blankly at the pool of green light, with an expression of disbelief on his face. With the strength of his 7th-level intermediate wood-type imperial spiritual master, he can naturally feel the pure wood-type spiritual power contained in the pool. This wood-type spiritual power is so pure, without any impurities, and is like a head of water. The terrifying spirit beast is dormant there, hiding its trembling aura. This is the wood spirit pond. Great uncle, as long as you soak in it and naturally absorb the life energy of the wood element in the pond, all the hidden diseases on your body will be cured. Jason explained. This pool is exactly the wood spirit pool that Jason prepared for Loken. When he prepared it for Loken, Jason thought of Rost in the family mansion, so when preparing the materials, Locke was specially asked to prepare an extra set. Of course, based on the different functions and bodies of Rost and Loken, Jason also made some fine adjustments to the dozen or so materials added to the pool. Wood spirit pool? Rost was confused, but he did not hesitate in his movements. His whole body turned into a stream of cyan light and entered the pool instantly. Poof! Water splashed everywhere. Just when Rost had just entered the pool and was not ready. Buzz! The entire wood spirit pond made strange trembling sounds, and a large amount of cyan air currents swirling on the surface of the pond boiled violently, roaring towards Rost. Boom, boom, boom. It's different from when Lokuan entered the wood spirit pool. When Lokuan entered, because his level was still very low, he was unable to absorb too much wood vitality at once, so the large amount of wood spiritual power knocked Loku out. And is wrapped into a blue silkworm cocoon. But when Rost entered the wood spirit pool, the powerful wood vitality contained in the pool suddenly rolled like a startled python and sank into Rost's body. Countless cyan air currents containing powerful wood energy were boiling and rolling above the pool, pouring into Rost's body crazily. At this moment, Rost looked like an 8-clawed octopus, with misty cyan light emanating from his body, shining brightly. Human eyes. On the bank of the pool, everyone looked at this scene in surprise. This is such rich wood spiritual power. In the pool, Rost was surprised and felt everything around him, and groaned. It feels so good, so good. Strands of pure wood life energy continuously penetrated into every corner of Rost's body, slowly changing Rost's body. In terms of age, Rost is nearly 100 years old. Although as a 7th-level intermediate imperial spiritual master, he still has decades to live, but due to the battle in his youth and the last serious injury, his condition has deteriorated. There are many hidden wounds all over his body, large and small. Although these hidden wounds cannot be seen normally, they torture him every moment and absorb the power from his body. These hidden wounds were hidden in the deepest parts of his body and could not be treated before. But at this moment, under the penetration of this strange energy in the pool, Rost felt numbness and pain in many places all over his body, especially in his chest. The place was so itchy that it was almost unbearable for him. That was exactly where he was hit hard by Birdsall's fire attack last time. As the tingling gradually disappeared, Rost felt extremely comfortable again in the previously tingling area. Slowly, Rost's internal organs became numb and itchy. As the strange power continued to enter, the damaged meridians, blood, bones, bone chains, all over his body, from the inside out, were changing. This is a radical change, starting from the deepest level of the cells. The whole portrait, full text, is full of life. Boom, boom, boom. Infinite wood life energy is constantly pouring into Rost's body, transforming Rost's body. However, the difference from Loken is that the original Loken absorbed the wood life vitality and absorbed enough energy. It took 50 days, but at this moment, just half an hour later, the movement in the pool gradually became quiet. Rost stood proudly in the middle of the pool, surrounded by green light, with his eyes closed tightly. There was a terrifying aura faintly exuding from his body. His body kept flickering in and out. When it was bright, it was as clear as blue jade. The red blood and bones were clearly visible, and streaks of cyan viscous liquid were swimming in his body, evolving spiritual power rules. Third uncle, what is he on the edge of the pool? Claude, Karen and other elders widened their eyes and looked at Rost in astonishment. He looked at Jason on the side again, and said in his eyes. It's unclear what the look is. Looking at Rost in the pool, Jason's eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of expectation. Uncle, you must succeed. Only if you succeed will you be protected. The Kingdom of Orlando protects the strength of the Todd family, otherwise, the family will always be in danger. While everyone was quietly expecting it and no one knew how long it had passed, poison rumbles. An extremely powerful wood power suddenly burst out from Rost in the pool. Waves of overwhelming spiritual energy were like waves, spreading out around Rost's body as the center. At the same time, an extremely huge spiritual power pressure descended from the sky and enveloped everyone present. The wood spiritual power above the entire Todd family mansion was rioting, and countless blue rays of light transformed over the mansion, like an aurora. Brilliant and shocking. Waves of cyan spiritual energy continued to rise into the sky, forming streaks of glow in the sky. The entire mansion was instantly filled with violent spiritual elements. The wood spiritual elements within a radius of 100 meters formed a huge. The whirlpool rushed towards Rost in the center of the vortex crazily, and was absorbed into Rost's body. Back off, everyone, step back. Beside the pool, Jason shouted loudly. The powerful wood spiritual energy overflowed in all directions, causing extremely painful scrapes. Everyone at the edge of the pool couldn't help but retreat and did not dare to get too close. This in the pool, Rost's eyes suddenly opened, and his whole body slowly floated above the pool. In his perception, all the spiritual elements in the world have formed a certain connection with him, and as time goes by, this connection is constantly deepening. Countless spiritual elements were constantly flowing and lingering around his body, as if they had become his right and left arms, driving him like an arm, without any sense of incoordination or obstacle. At this moment, Rost felt that he seemed to be completely integrated with the whole world. The world was his body, and he was the core of the whole world. All the spiritual elements in the surrounding heaven and earth are part of his body, and he can control them at will. This feeling completely immersed Rost's spirit in it, and he couldn't help but stretched out his hands. Boom! All the wood elements in the world, under his control, were transformed into wood spiritual power, forming an ocean of wood spiritual power in the sky, and the science spiritual power was like a wave. Generally speaking, it is constantly surging and roaring, and it is powerful and terrifying. At this moment, the original 7th level intermediate spiritual power in Rost's body also boiled and became violent in an instant, transforming into a more powerful spiritual power, 7th level advanced spiritual power. An extremely powerful aura roared out from Rost's body, and the powerful pressure was uncontrollably pressed over the entire Todd family mansion. This force was so powerful that it alarmed all the powerful men in the entire royal city. For a time, in every corner of the royal city of Colton, many people from major forces in the mainland raised their heads and looked at the Todd family mansion, with incomparable horror in their eyes. For a time, all the powerful spiritual masters in the royal city of the Kingdom of Orlando, who felt the powerful energy exuded by Rost, looked at the sky above the Todd family mansion in horror. This feeling that is completely consistent with the spiritual elements between heaven and earth is a feeling that only 7th level senior imperial spiritual masters can form. Is there anyone in the Todd family who has been promoted to 7th level senior imperial spiritual master? From the Todd family? Among the 7th level senior imperial spiritual masters, there is only Rost. The 7th level intermediate level wood type imperial spiritual master has a science spiritual power that is also of the wood type. Apart from Rost, there can be no one else. Rost, it's impossible. I saw Rost at the door of the Todd family's mansion before, and he didn't feel like he had been promoted to the 7th level of senior imperial spiritualist at all. Isn't it said that Rost was promoted to the 7th level of the imperial spiritual master 3 years ago? He was seriously injured in the battle with the Daos family and was left with a hidden disease. Will he be unable to advance for the rest of his life? Naturally, these members from the major forces in the mainland also have extremely high vision. In an instant, they can judge who is it. At the same time, various doubts emerged in their hearts. Not long after Reno suddenly took action to kill Roosevelt and Hoover, something like this happened again. This caused the spies from the major forces in the mainland to have thoughts in their minds, thinking about what they should do next. According to the regulations of the Twin Towers, outside 8th level Emperor spiritual masters are not allowed to intervene in the battles of small countries like the Northwest countries. The strongest people that these big families on the mainland can send are generally 7th level high-level emperors. Spiritualist. Now the Todd family has an 8th level imperial spiritualist named Renault, and Rost has been promoted to a 7th level high-level imperial spiritualist. In addition, no force dares to risk being punished by the Twin Towers and send experts come. As long as the Todd family stays in the Northwest countries, they will always be invincible. If you want to cause harm to it, you can only take advantage of Renault's absence and send a large number of 7th level senior imperial spiritual masters to sneak attack. However, facing a force with masters of imperial spiritual masters, I am afraid that no family will do such a thing. Stupid things. While the spies from other forces were thinking, Parsons of the Dawes family had a look of shock on his face, looking at the Todd family in disbelief. First, Leo was promoted to the 7th level low-level imperial spiritual master, and then Nerost was promoted to the 7th level high-level imperial spiritual master. This what happened to the Todd family in these short 2 hours? Parsons' face was pale, he was muttering to himself, and his heart was still trembling. Ordinary spiritual masters can only sense the aura of Rost's promotion to the 7th level senior imperial spiritual master, but a 7th level senior imperial spiritual master like Parsons can even capture the aura of the low-level emperor spiritual master who previously broke through to the 7th level. Arrive. I have seen that Leo and Rost have not reached the limit of promotion at all, and it is completely impossible to advance in this short time. However, they were suddenly promoted to the 1st level, and it was after Renault and Jason during the time when they just came back. Jason or Renault definitely gave those 2 people some help. No matter what methods they used, they were able to make 2 spiritual masters who had not met the promotion conditions break through. With such strength, Parson as a spy arranged by the Daos family, was naturally not a fool. He didn't feel anything at first when Leo was promoted, but now that Rost was promoted next, he immediately felt something was wrong. The family must be notified of this matter. It's terrible. It's terrible. If things continue like this, the Todd family will probably expand to unimaginable proportions in 10 years. Parsons trembled all over and said after the information was sent out, his whole body softened completely. Now, it depends on the family's decision. He looked in the direction of the Todd family in horror and murmured. On this day, after Renault came back, a stream of news was like an electric current, radiating from Colton, the royal city of the Kingdom of Orlando, to all parts of the mainland, and was passed to the intelligence-receiving departments of various forces. The reputations of Renault and Jason emerged in the battle with the Daos family 3 years ago, and they once again appeared in front of some mainland forces. In the palace of the Kingdom of Orlando, Leasant, who was arranging the guards to do their work when he returned to the palace, was also looking in the direction of Todd's mansion in surprise. The furious Renault instantly killed the 2 masters of the Decre family. As the king of the Kingdom of Orlando, he had to arrange some things properly. However, the sudden appearance of Lin and Shadow surprised Leasant. This aura is Rost. He has been promoted to the 7th level of Senior Imperial Spirit Master. In the main hall, Lin and Shadow had expressions of disbelief on their faces. Others don't know much about Rost, but the 2 of them, who have a very good relationship with the Todd family, know clearly that in the battle with the Dawes family, Rost was seriously injured. Let alone advance in this life, it is difficult to maintain the original strength. Both Lin and Shadow know this. However, it had not been 2 hours since Renault killed Roosevelt and the others. The 2 of them had just returned to the palace for a while. Rost, who had not made any movement before, suddenly became a 7th level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master. Such a strange thing. Lin and the others were stunned for a moment. Master Jason, it must be Master Jason. After a while, Lin's eyes widened and he murmured something. Lin, who led the team to participate in the Elixir Master Conference with Master Rudolph, naturally knew about Jason's outstanding performance at the Elixir Master Conference, and also had a deep understanding of Jason's attainments in elixir science. If the Todd family still has if there is any possibility for Rost to advance from the 7th level Intermediate Imperial Spiritual Master to the 7th level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master in a short period of time, except for Master Jason who has just returned, there is no second possibility in the royal city. Everyone, the powerful spiritual masters were all shocked by the powerful aura displayed by Rost as he advanced to the 7th level of Senior Imperial Spiritual Master. A few meters above the Todd family mansion, Rost floated there quietly. Is this the 7th level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master? This kind of power, this feeling of complete integration with heaven and earth in the sky, Rost looked at his hands blankly. He felt that his body was full of energy at this moment. Strength, his aura is also extremely powerful, just say it, Lai Xing. He even feels that at this moment, he can fight with Roosevelt of the Decker family who was killed by Renault before without losing. 7th level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master, haha, I have finally been promoted to the 7th level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master. I didn't expect that I, Rost, would still have such a day. Rost murmured to himself, with a look in his eyes. The light became brighter and brighter, and then he let out a hearty laugh, haha. This kind of powerful power has always been what he has been searching for. He once thought that he had lost hope, and the battle 3 years ago made his mood hit rock bottom. But at this moment, his mood it's full of excitement. This is an indescribable feeling, as if hope has completely left you, but suddenly appears in front of you. That kind of excitement makes people ecstatic. He felt like he was reborn. At this moment, all the hidden wounds that existed in various parts of his body disappeared. Every part of his body was filled with unparalleled vitality like a young man. Rost came to Jason, too excited to speak. Previously, he was still amused that Leo was so excited that he didn't know what to say in front of Jason, but now, he was just like Leo, no better than him. The former Rost, as the eldest member of the Todd family, although as a wood spiritual master had stronger vitality than ordinary people, his hair was also gray and his body was covered with some wrinkles. However, at this moment, Rost seemed to be dozens of years younger all of a sudden. His face was rosy, his hair was no longer gray, and the wrinkles on his face had disappeared. He looked not much older than Leo. If Rost and his juniors Claude, Karen and others were to stand together now, and an unknown person came to see him, he would definitely think that Rost was the junior of Claude and Karen, not the elder. "Uncle, I have something for you." Just when everyone was extremely shocked and excited, Jason spoke up again. After the words fell, Jason shook his left hand slightly, and a scroll appeared in his hand and handed it to Rost. "Uncle, this is a volume of low-grade moon-level wood type. You can take it for reference." This volume of wood-type magic was obtained from the original Daimler. Jason made several copies and gave one to his disciple Loken, and now he gave it to Rost. A low-grade moon-level wooden Rost was completely stunned. He took the scroll from Jason's hand tremblingly, his face full of excitement. That expression was like holding the woman he loved carefully. After handing the wooden gun to Rost, Jason looked at his father again. "Third uncle, I have something else for you." Renault also said with a smile. "There's something else." Rost's eyes widened, almost popping out of his eyes. Claude and others around them also looked at Rost with envy. Although Rost was their third uncle, this was really good luck. Now, with the help of Jason, he was promoted from the 7th level Intermediate Imperial Spiritual Master to the 7th level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master, and then he obtained a volume of low-grade moon level. Now, Renault has something to give him. This god must be jealous. In everyone's expectant eyes, the ring on Renault's left hand lit up, and a piece of horny armor with a cyan halo, like a wooden armor, suddenly appeared in front of everyone. This is feeling the powerful aura exuding from this armor, Rost couldn't help but be stunned. In front of Rost, the wooden armor with a cyan halo was exuding waves of powerful spiritual power. Around the armor, various complex spiritual power patterns were engraved, and the attachments were like projections, constantly appearing and circulating on the armor, giving people a sense of inscrutability. Although Rost was born in the Todd family, a small family in the Kingdom of Orlando, as a family with a long history and as a 7th level Intermediate Imperial Spiritual Master, he still has a certain vision. This is at least a high-level defensive spiritual weapon. Even on the mainland, it is an extremely expensive treasure. Rost said in shock. In Stern Continent, spiritual weapons are generally classified according to their functions. Attack-type spiritual weapons are generally the most common and have the lowest value. Of course, this is compared to other types of spiritual weapons, and defensive spiritual weapons. The weapon is the most expensive of all spiritual weapons. During the auction, the price of a defensive spiritual weapon was at least as high as the price of several offensive spiritual weapons of the same level, which shows how precious it is. Therefore, after seeing the spiritual armor that Huawen was responsible for in front of him, it was no wonder that Rost was so shocked. "Haha, third uncle, this horned wood armor is a low-grade wood-type exclusive defensive weapon. Jason and I got it accidentally when we were on the mainland. It's just right for you to use," Renault said with a smile. Voice. Claude and others on the side rolled their eyes when they heard this. Obtained by accident. If such a treasure can be obtained by accident, then I am afraid that everyone on the continent has one. However, in fact, it is extremely rare for an ordinary 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master to have a mysterious spiritual weapon, such as Earth-grade spiritual weapons, and even defensive spiritual weapons, which are almost impossible to possess. How is this possible? After hearing Renault say that this horned wood armor is an Earth-grade defensive weapon, Rost was shocked in his heart. Although he wanted it very much, he waved his hands repeatedly, not daring to accept it. It is true that the defensive spiritual weapons of the highest quality are too precious. Even though Renaud is his junior, he does not dare to accept them casually. Great uncle, this wood-type hornwood armor is just right for you, so you don't have to refuse. Moreover, there is a reason why we gave you this wood-type hornwood armor, Jason said in an extremely serious voice from the side. My father and I can't always stay in the family, so there must be a strong person in the family who can withstand the situation. Just like when we were away, Roosevelt of the Decray family dared to stay in the family. The reason why the family and the kingdom are arrogant is because the kingdom of Orlando does not have a top strong person. In the kingdom of Orlando, due to the agreement between the Twin Towers, there will generally be no strong 4th and 8th level imperial spiritual masters. The most powerful person is at the level of a 7th level senior imperial spiritual master. Now, uncle, you have advanced to the 7th level. A high-level imperial spiritual master, but as a wood type, you may not be stronger than some veteran high-level imperial spiritual masters in terms of strength. But after you have this horned wood armor, you will have enough strength to protect this family and the kingdom. Jason looked solemn and his tone was extremely serious. When he came back this time, the reason why he improved Rost's strength was not just because Rost was his great-uncle, but also based on this consideration. It is impossible for Jason to stay in the kingdom of Orlando forever. With his current strength, he needs to continuously travel on the mainland to grow up. Reno, on the other hand, only comes back to take a look, and will return to the Kingdom of Chaos soon. Lead to continue his practice. After all, the metal space of Jintong Hall is the most suitable place for his practice. Therefore, in the Kingdom of Orlando, there must be a 7th level peak Imperial Spiritual Master who can control the scene, and Rost, who has just been promoted to the 7th level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master, is the best candidate. Although Rost has just been promoted to the 7th level Senior Emperor, Rost the Emperor Spiritual Master, but after being transformed by the Wood Spirit Pool and acquiring the low-grade moon-level wood-type skills, his strength is no worse than that of the average 7th level high-level Emperor Spiritual Master. The wood-type Spiritual Master has a life. His vitality and flexibility are generally very strong, but his defense is poor. And if he puts on this low-grade hornwood armor obtained from Daimler, his biggest weakness is the child was blocked. The power of the low-grade defensive spiritual weapon was enough to improve Rost's defense by 1 level. When Renaud and Daimler fought, Renaud's golden spiritual power could restrain Daimler's wood. Although he tried his best to use the third form of the basic secret control technique of the Gold Spiritual Master, he failed to kill Daimler. In the end, it was the shock of Jason's soul that made Daimler's hornwood armor lose its effectiveness. Renaud was the one who killed him in one fell swoop. It can be said that after putting on the hornwood armor, although Rost had just been promoted to the 7th level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master at this moment, among the Imperial Spiritual Masters, even the peak Emperor of the Gold System, the Spiritual Master, using attribute restraint, cannot kill Rost. Unless this high-level Imperial Spiritual Master is like Renaud, who has mastered the laws of the metal system and has the ability to instantly burst out secret techniques that far exceed his own strength. Concubine Sue, there is only a glimmer of possibility. Okay, if that's the case, then I'll be disrespectful. Seeing the firm eyes of Jason and Renaud, Rost gritted his teeth and took the hornwood armor from Renaud. As the wood spiritual power lingered, the hornwood armor emitted a dazzling light, and then slowly disappeared. Entered Rost's body. If another guy like Roosevelt comes to act arrogantly, I will let him know that we are the head of the Todd family. Feeling the powerful spiritual power surging within his body, Rost spoke proudly. Haha. The hearty laughter of everyone suddenly came from the Todd family's mansion. With the help of Jason, while Rost and others were improving their strength, a few days later, the news that Parsons sent from the royal city had been delivered to the Daos family in Shawnee County of the Cairo Empire. The meeting hall on the top floor of the main building of the Daos family mansion. On both sides of the long oblong mahogany table in the middle of the room, a group of old men sat there, frowning and looking at the message Parsons had sent back from the Kingdom of Orlando in their hands. The atmosphere in the air was so weird that it was almost frozen, making people feel extremely suffocated. Elders, what do you think now? At the head of the round table, Rao, the patriarch of the Daos family, sat there, looking coldly at the people below. Around the round table, all the elders looked at each other with disbelief in their eyes as they looked at the news in their hands. Chief Rao, is this news true? After a long time, a wrinkled old man frowned and spoke with a hint of trembling in his tone. This is the message that Parsons personally delivered back from the Kingdom of Orlando. It contains the family imprint. Do you think it is true? Rao said coldly. In 3 years, he was promoted from the 7th level low-level Emperor Spiritual Master to the 8th level Emperor Spiritual Master. Renault's strength has improved too quickly. How is this possible? An old man said in shock. That's not all. After Renault and Jason returned to the Todd family, they promoted the Todd family's patriarch Leo from a 6th level senior spiritual master to a 7th level low-level imperial spiritual master within 2 hours. To promote Rost, who is a 7th level intermediate imperial spiritual master, to a 7th level senior imperial spiritual master. Where did Reno and Jason go in the past 3 years? Why didn't Parsons get any news? Reno was ruthless enough. After he came back, he killed Roosevelt and Hoover of the Decray family. Although the Decray family's power has weakened a lot after Haig's death, the current clan leader Lin Deng is still an 8th level intermediate emperor spiritual master. If clan leader Lin Deng gets the news, I don't know what he will do. After silence, there was a buzzing sound in the hall. The voices of discussion. The speed of Renault's advancement and everything that happened in the Kingdom of Orlando made them feel unbelievable. Elders, what we need to discuss now is not how the other party advanced to the 8th level Imperial Spiritual Master. Now the matter has happened. What I want to know is, what do you think this time? Rao had a sarcastic smile on his face. The elders looked at each other and frowned. The powerful potential shown by Renault and Jason has far exceeded theirs. Anticipate. Then Renault has actually advanced to the 8th level of Emperor Spiritual Master. Beside the round table, Augustus gritted his teeth, clenched his fists tightly, and there was a trace of anger in his eyes. Everyone, he stood up and said aloud, the development of Renault and Jason has far exceeded our expectations. I suggest that the family should implement the original plan. Secretly send someone to kill them both. Assassinate. Assassination? Bursts of discussion suddenly erupted in the meeting hall. Augustus Rao stood up with anger in his eyes. What's your idea? Elders, I don't care what you decide, but I can never destroy our Daos family. Reputation assassination, you can think of it. When the news that Renault and Jason were still alive first came, Rao did not support killing Renault and Jason, but after Augustus' analysis, next, all the elders agreed with Augustus. However, what they got back was the embarrassing return of Augustus and Sally, and the shameful 10-year agreement. Faced with such a result, Rao ignored Rao's opinions and slowly resolved the hatred between the two parties. However, under the influence of Augustus' words, the elders decided on a development based on Jason's strength. The decision to nip it in the bud. Now, Augustus made another assassination plan, which completely made Rao angry. At the beginning, you didn't agree with Renault and Yulia because he was born poor and had low strength, but what about now? Rao had a sneer on his face. All the elders were silent. The development of Renault and Jason was far beyond their expectations. These elders are silent. Chief Rao was right. The reason why he did not agree to the marriage between Renault and Yulia was because Renault was born in a humble background and his strength was average. But now the talent Renault has shown has made them all shut up. They were even thinking about what would have happened if they had agreed to the marriage between Renault and Yulia. If there is such a genius in their family, then the future of the family, when they think of this, they can't help but get excited, but now, alas, they can only sigh in their hearts. Seeing that all the elders present were silent, Augustus couldn't help but stood up and sneered, "Father, everyone, you must know how we dealt with them in the beginning, and now we are thinking about building a good relationship. Is it too late? Now that it has happened, what's the use of regretting it anymore?" Augustus had a sarcastic look on his face. After hearing what Augustus said, these elders also hesitated. In fact, their idea was very simple. Everything was for the sake of the family. But Augustus was right. Now that the matter has come to this, no matter what they do, it's useless to regret. What's important is how to make the family face a catastrophe 7 years later. However, Patriarch Rao stated that assassinations were not allowed, which made them unable to think of a good way. Then Renaud is just an 8th-level low-level emperor, spiritual master now. Although it is good, it will not cause such a big difficulty to the family. Although he has been promoted to the 8th-level emperor, spiritual master in 3 years, but after 7 years, I still don't know what state I will be in. Look at how worried you all are. Augustus snorted coldly. You guys can discuss it slowly, I'm going to practice. After saying that, Augustus walked out of the meeting hall. In front of the round table, Rao looked at his son and couldn't help but sigh secretly in his heart. It is difficult for an upright official to deal with household affairs. Although he is the head of the family, he is also extremely troubled about this matter. I don't know what to do. After hearing what Augustus said, the elders also started talking about it. Augustus was right. Although Renaud has been promoted to the 8th-level low-level imperial spiritual master now, he may not be that strong after 7 years. After the 8th level, progress at each level is extremely difficult. Augustus, who is now an 8th-level intermediate imperial spiritual master in his family, is considered a genius. However, more than 20 years ago, Augustus was as an 8th-level low-level imperial spiritual master. More than 20 years have passed now. Augustus is still a little bit behind the 8th-level high-level imperial spiritual master. After the 8th level, it is not easy to break through in a short time. Maybe 7 years later, Renaud is still an 8th-level low-level imperial spiritual master. We have been discussing for a long time. These elders did not make a decision. In the end, they could only let Parsons continue to observe and make a decision based on future changes in the situation. In a room deep in the Daos mansion, Augustus, who went back alone, picked up the intelligence that Parsons had collected in the Kingdom of Orlando in the past 2 years. Assassination. Jason seemed to have been assassinated back then. But it seemed that it didn't succeed because Wayne was by his side. Now that Renaud has become a thing, but this Jason, I don't believe it, he will do it in the past 3 years. The progress is so rapid. Augustus had a cold smile on his face. He quickly browsed through a stack of documents, and then landed on a well of information. This Dark Knight organization seems to be a very powerful assassination organization near the Northwest countries and the Cairo Empire. If they are allowed to assassinate Jason, I'm afraid Renaud will have no idea how painful it will be. Augustus thought in his heart, yes, assassinate that Jason first. As for that Renaud, I will wait until I advance to the 8th level of Senior Imperial Spirit Master and then kill him myself. That's it. Thinking of this, Augustus couldn't help laughing out loud, ha ha, ha ha ha. 2 days later, a commission appeared in the secret headquarters base established by the Dark Knight organization somewhere in the Hingduan Mountains, 30,000 miles between the Cairo Empire and the Northwest countries. Someone wants to assassinate Jason of the Kingdom of Orlando for a high price? A man in black wearing a black cloak, covering his whole body, said hoarsely. That Jason, 3 years ago, destroyed my purpose in the Kingdom of Orlando, and even more so. Not only that, but it also caused such a big disturbance that all forces from the mainland gathered in Colton, the royal city of the Kingdom of Orlando, which made it impossible for me to get that thing. Hand. The man in black cloak gritted his teeth and said, now that Jason has attracted the attention of countless people, his father Renaud is a powerful 8th-level imperial spiritual master. Assassinating him is not a simple matter. The important thing is that the thing is located in the palace of the Kingdom of Orlando. Now there are Lin and Shadow waiting in the palace. They want to take the thing away without anyone noticing under the watchful eyes of so many powerful masters. This is no simple matter. It's all that Jason. If he hadn't attracted the attention of so many forces on the mainland and sent a large number of masters to the royal city of the Kingdom of Orlando, maybe I would have gotten that thing long ago. Huh? Dong attracted the attention of so many forces? Suddenly, the cloaked figure seemed to have thought of something, and said in a low voice, "By the way, if this is the case, maybe there will be a chance." The cloaked man suddenly raised his head and said, "Let the number 1 and the second director come to see me immediately." In the Dark Knight organization, the serial number of the killer is based on his strength. Numbers 1 and 2 are the most powerful in the entire Dark Knight organization. The powerful killers have all reached the level of 7th level Imperial spiritual masters. After a moment, Chief. Two illusory black figures suddenly appeared quietly in the center of the hall. During the whole process, there was not a trace of spiritual power fluctuations in the air. "There is a task here that needs you two to complete." As he spoke, the commission task sheet in the hands of the cloaked man passed through the space and appeared in the hands of the two men. The black figure lowered his head and glanced at the task details on the commission task list, then his figure flickered and disappeared into the hall again. Jason, who was far away in Colton, the royal city of Orlando, naturally knew nothing about what was happening between the Dawes family and the Dark Knight organization. In the past few days since his return, Jason had been extremely busy. First of all, there are naturally invitations from His Majesty Lecent and Prince Dios. Jason naturally needs to go. Then there are invitations from Dylan, Rudolph and others. Then there are two people like Saha and Bisfam. Naturally, Jason also needs to get together. After 3 years of not seeing each other, the strength of everyone in the Kingdom of Orlando has changed considerably. Like Rudolph, who originally took the picture of the Spirit Master potion prepared by Jason, in these 3 in the middle of the year, he had already become a true 6th level low-level elixir master. Saha and Bisfam, who were originally only 4th level high-level elixir masters, also became true masters of elixir with the help of Rudolph. He became a 5th level intermediate elixir master. Seeing these two old guys, Jason couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Without the help of these two people, Jason would have slowly embarked on the path of becoming a strong man, but it would never have been as smooth as it is now. When several elixir masters met, they naturally talked about elixir science, and Jason's elixir science accomplishments surprised Rudolph and others. At that time, although Jason was often able to prepare some extremely powerful spiritual potions using some weird methods that he called technical spiritual medicine. However, in terms of his attainments in spiritual knowledge and medicine, Jason still needs to consult with Saha, Bisfam, Rudolph and others, and communicate with each other to improve each other. However, 3 years later, his own strength has reached the 6th level of low level after Jason, the spiritual master, communicated with Master Balandayan, who is the 7th level intermediate elixir master in Chi'er province. He has completely surpassed him not only in other aspects, but also in the spiritual consciousness flow elixir. Rudolph and others. Seeing Jason's huge changes, Rudolph and others couldn't help but sigh with emotion. They knew Jason's strength very clearly. When Jason was in Talon City, he applied for the 1st level low-level elixir apprentice badge was given by President Saha. Unexpectedly, a few years later, Jason has become a true elixir master, not only in terms of strength, but also in terms of spiritual power and level. He can definitely be called a master. And this exchange with Jason also allowed Rudolph and others to understand some things about elixirs. I think in a certain aspect they will have a lot of achievements in the recent period. Progress. After meeting with some old friends, Jason and Renault received invitations from major forces on the mainland. This made Jason feel a huge headache, and he could only try his best to push some entertainment to Leo, now Leo, as a 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master, even without Renault and Jason, has a 7th level high-level Imperial Spiritual Master, and a 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master. Todd the family is already considered a quite powerful family, enough to earn the respect of these continental forces. Haha, Master Jason, you have such attainments in elixirs at such a young age, and your future achievements are limitless. At the door of the Todd family, several members of the mainland forces complimented Jason. During these days, several groups of members from the mainland forces would come to visit the Todd family every day. As landowners, the Todd family would naturally host banquets to entertain them. After all, the smallest of these forces was similar to the Todd family today. There are at least several 7th level Imperial Spiritual Masters in the family, and if they can make friends, they will not suffer any loss. Chief Leo, Senior Rost, your Todd family is so lucky. If our family had a figure like Master Jason, we would be smiling from ear to ear all day long. At the door of the mansion, several powerful people, the members, smiled and complimented. Our clan leader said that if Chief Leo and Senior Rost pass by the Mecca province of the Cairo Empire in the future, they must come to visit our Dantar family. Absolutely. Leo and Rost smiled with a smile on his face. Master Jason, the man wanted to say something to Jason, but at this moment, boom. A powerful spiritual power suddenly fell from the sky, and at the same time a black dagger suddenly appeared out of thin air, like a ghost. Wipe it towards Jason's throat like lightning. The black dagger, like the letter spit out by a poisonous snake, shimmered with dark light and appeared silently in the void to deliver a fatal blow to Jason. Everyone looked at this scene in surprise. The other party's appearance came without any warning, as if it appeared out of thin air, too fast and sudden. Jason, be careful. Not far away, Leo and Rose yelled, trying to come to the rescue. But the faint shadow appeared too suddenly. The cold light suddenly appeared, biting to the bone. In an instant, the shadow had appeared at Jason's throat. The dark shadow's eyes were calm without a trace of emotion, full of indifference, and the murderous intent in the eyes was well hidden. It was not until the moment the dagger appeared that the cold murderous intent surged out like a tide. The eyes of Leo and Rose were full of anxiety, their eyes were cracked, and the spiritual power in their bodies burst out, but they were powerless again. The pupils of everyone around them suddenly shrank, and many people asked themselves that if it were them, they would never be able to escape this fatal blow. Certain death. At the same time, they were also frightened, which family had the courage to assassinate Jason at this time. The members of these forces who appeared here were filled with fear. If Renault blamed Jason's death on the forces present, then they would all be in danger. Dang. Just when everyone thought that Jason would definitely die, in a moment, a black light suddenly appeared in front of Jason. At this critical moment, it blocked the flashing dark and cold light. On top of the dagger. The black light appeared so suddenly. No one could react, and it was only at this moment that they discovered that the black light was actually the black épée that Jason had been carrying behind his back, and it had already appeared in Jason's hand. Laugh. The black figure missed the target, and Leah retreated violently, without any trace of confusion, like a sudden glance. In the blink of an eye, the faint figure disappears into the air. I want to escape. Not far away, Rossi roared angrily, his hands spread wide, and countless green vines quickly appeared in the air. Shrouded in the void, not far away. Everyone present let out a long breath, but at this moment, chi. Another figure flew over and appeared suddenly behind Jason, like comet strikes the moon, white rainbow penetrates the sun. Countless cold lights illuminate the earth, the sword energy spreads horizontally, releasing cold murderous intent. It was so fast that no one could react. A black figure's hand was blurred, and the sky was filled with cold stars, covering Jason's body everywhere. There was no escape, everything happened so suddenly and quickly. There was no sign. The cold stars in the sky were spitting green light, pointing directly at Jason's head, back, waist and abdomen, targeting many vital points. What was even more frightening was that the opponent appeared behind Jason, and did not emit any spiritual energy before appearing. The power fluctuations, combined with the sneak attack of the figure before, are linked together, making people violent at the moment when they think they have escaped the assassination and start to relax. It cannot be prevented at all. This is a killer. No one would have thought that after the first killer failed, there would be such a blow, and someone with extraordinary skills would appear out of thin air. The shocking killing made everyone feel cold. Who could escape such an assassination? I don't know how he appeared at all. With such a method, even a strong 7th-level Emperor Spirit Master will be caught in the opponent's way in an instant, and his body and head will be missing. Jason. On the side, Luo Ji no longer cared about the previous killer. With a wave of his hand, countless cyan spiritual powers surged in like pythons, roaring and roaring, shaking the world. The endless cyanwood spiritual powers collapsed, but no matter how powerful Luo Ji's attack was, it was of no avail. Distant water cannot save near fire. Leo's eyes were red, and the golden light in his hands flickered, but he was helpless in the face of Jason, who had been pierced by the cold star. No, he let out a painful roar. At this critical moment. Buzz. A very subtle trembling sound suddenly came from Jason's body surface, and in the horrified eyes of everyone. The black épée in Jason's hand was like a straw without any weight, being squeezed out. A black light formed around Jason's body, forming a ball of black light, completely wrapping Jason in it. Ding, 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 like big beads and small beads falling on a jade plate, a series of metal collision sounds suddenly and densely sounded in this area of the world, almost forming a long line. Countless cold stars were cut and exploded in an instant, or were ejected and scattered in all directions. Time seemed to have frozen, everyone held their breath, everyone opened their eyes wide and paid attention nervously. Jason's eyes were calm and emotionless. Under the cold stars in the sky, everyone watching around him had their hearts in their throats. However, there was no trace of panic on Jason's face. Based on the opponent's shots and the speed of action, Jason could feel that the two killers who made the sneak attack earlier should be strong men at the level of 7th Order Imperial Spiritual Masters. Only in this way can they hide in the void and completely connect with the spiritual elements between heaven and earth. Fusion, otherwise there is no way to avoid the scanning of one's own spiritual consciousness. With Jason's current strength, if these two killers came up to the building, they would unleash their strongest attacks. It might still be possible to use powerful spiritual energy to kill Jason, who was a 6th-level low-level spiritual master, to ashes. But their mistake was that they took advantage of their concealment and took action quietly. Use fast attacks to deal with Jason without enough time to react. This move is extremely effective for others. Even a 7th-level senior Imperial spiritual master like Ross Holder would be killed instantly if he were caught off guard without a spiritual weapon like the Hornwood armor to defend him. However, facing the strange mountain forest deep in the Bloody Abyss Mountain in the secret realm of the spiritual pond, and being attacked by the terrifying cyan airflow for 8 months that even the powerful Emperor spiritual master could not withstand, he had already understood how to move his heart at will. Jason, who relied on body instinct and conditioned reflex defense at the highest level of épée law, had no effect at all on the opponent's attack that was filled with cold stars. Jason's defense has already been able to be watertight, without any breaking point. For Jason, the opponent's assassination does not put any pressure at all. In everyone's horrified eyes, Man Yao Hanqing's attack, which even the 7th-level Emperor Spirit Master had no time to react, was all blocked by the heavy sword in Jason's hand in an instant. Everyone present was shocked when they felt Jason's strength. Even the assassin couldn't help but show a hint of surprise in his eyes. Whoosh! Seeing that his assassination failed, the killer didn't hesitate in the slightest. He retreated violently and gradually dissipated, trying to hide in the air. Death. After such a pause, Rossi had already felt Jason's side. The green light in his eyes skyrocketed, and as he waved his hand, countless green airflows formed a cage, trying to surround the killer. However, what surprised everyone was that the killer's figure twisted twice in the void like a snake demon, and at the same time, a cold light flashed in his hand, instantly cutting open the two cyan air currents released by Ross. At this moment, his figure was so faint that he almost disappeared in front of everyone. Want to escape? Huh, now that you're here, just let me stay. Jason sneered, a cold light suddenly flashed in his eyes, and a transparent ripple of nothingness suddenly shot out from Jason's cicadas. Out, into the opponent's figure that is about to dive into the void. The originally almost invisible figure trembled. Quickly and clearly appeared in the void. There was a trace of horror in the killer-eye cicada. As his body swayed, he wanted to continue sneaking, but at this moment, "You are a liar, how dare you come to assassinate my son?" An angry roar exploded in the void like thunder, and at the same time, a golden palm was like a small mountain. It descended from the sky and tightly held the killer in the palm of my hand. Boom! The mountain shook, the air trembled, and endless spiritual power erupted like a volcano. Everyone present suddenly felt like a small boat in the sea, which could be destroyed at any time. The golden giant hand disappeared, and the figure in black tights was pressed into the rocky ground. His flesh and blood were blurred, and he was no longer human. The rocks on the street were cracked like spider webs. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. From Jason being assassinated by the first person to Renault's appearance, it sounds like a long time, but in fact it is only a short period of time. However, in this period of time, it is a thrilling step that makes people dare not breathe. "Father, there was just a killer nearby, right here," Jason said hurriedly. Buzz. A line of pale golden spiritual power radiated from Renault's body, covering a distance of nearly a kilometer in radius. It is Renault's golden elemental barrier. At the same time, two golden auroras burst out from Renault's eyes like sword rays. Searching this world. However, what surprised Renault was that he was completely unable to search where the other party was fishing. "Humph, that's the case," Renault hummed in his mouth, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and an unparalleled powerful pressure fell on him instantly. The entire mansion was instantly filled with rich golden elements, like the tide of elements. It is constantly ups and downs. Waves of misty golden spiritual power enveloped the world, forming a golden misty ball around Renault. In the middle of the circle, there were countless extremely powerful golden balls. The spiritual power is like a sword-wielding snake, constantly moving around in a unique pattern, with murderous intent. The gold spiritual master basically controls the fifth form of the secret method, space-cutting damage. Suddenly, a brilliant light burst out from Renault's eyes, and the powerful golden spiritual power suddenly exploded like an exploding dynamite barrel. Buzz 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 buzz. The spiritual power trembled, the space collapsed, and countless golden sword snakes enveloped the whole world like a heaven and earth net, and then boom. Countless golden sword shadows instantly intertwined and condensed into a huge golden sword rainbow. Endless spiritual power exploded. When the sword rainbow fell, pieces of space suddenly shattered like mirrors. And in the collapsing void, an embarrassed figure suddenly fell from it, with incomparable horror and disbelief in his eyes. He could not understand how Renault, who was an 8th-level low-level Emperor Spiritualist, could cut the void. The 8th-level low-level Emperor Spiritualist was very powerful, but he had only just reached the point where he could condense the essence of elements and form elements. The point of enchantment. Logically speaking, cutting the space and shattering the void with a wave of his hand is a method that only an 8th-level senior Emperor Spiritual Master can achieve. However, at this moment, he couldn't care less about being surprised. In front of an 8th-level Emperor Spiritual Master, what awaited him would be a doomsday disaster. Looking at the figure emerging from the void, a cold murderous intention appeared at the corner of Renault's mouth. Boom. 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 Countless golden sword rainbows were like swimming fish, surrounding the figure in black tights, cutting off all spiritual elements around him and preventing him from escaping. Void. The black figure's eyes showed an extremely frightened look. He struggled to escape, but his body seemed to be frozen, making it difficult to move. The golden rainbow is misty, and the powerful murderous intention is rampant, and it can be destroyed in an instant. Father, show mercy! Jason shouted hurriedly from the side. Tisk! A ripple of nothingness shot out from his eyes, and the powerful soul wave penetrated the blockade of Renault's sword rainbow and sank directly into the opponent's body. Whoosh! At the same time, Jason's entire body instantly turned into an afterimage and rushed towards the man in black like lightning. Jason! Renault said in shock, and hurriedly dispersed the golden sword rainbow surrounding the man in black, for fear of hurting Jason at all. At the same time, a trace of doubt arose in Renault's mind. Under his own blockade, the man in black had no possibility of escaping. What was Jason's current behavior? Under the shock of Jason's soul, the man in black was confused for a moment, and then regained his clarity. However, the moment he regained his clarity, he saw that the Jason he had assassinated had appeared in front of him. Jason's eyes were sharp, his lips pressed tightly, and every muscle in his body was tense to the extreme. Then, his hand suddenly disappeared in an instant, turning into a void afterimage. Bang! 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 A series of sounds of gunshots were continuously transmitted to the ears of the surrounding guests. In the astonished eyes of everyone, Jason's hands struck the man in black's body one after another like lightning. The speed was so shocking that it was difficult for anyone to notice. Among the guests, there were also 2 7th-level Emperor Spirit Masters. However, even they could only see the shadow of Jason's hand flashing in front of the man in black and could not see clearly. A trace of spiritual power quickly invaded the body of the man in black with Jason's fingers, sealing all the meridians around the man in black. Jason's attack was so sudden that before anyone could react, Jason had already stopped what he was doing. Hoochie, Hoojiao! Jason gasped, and a large amount of sweat suddenly oozed from his originally smooth forehead. His hands trembled slightly, and red bloodshot streaks overflowed from his pores. 100 Forbidden Spirits. This is the name of the physical skill that Jason used previously. In an instant, he clicked out 108 hands from top to bottom, sealing 108 meridians nodes in the opponent's body, allowing the opponent to body in an instant. The inner spiritual power cannot function and falls into coma. This move normally requires an 8th-level peak Emperor-level body to be able to perform it. Now Jason's physical strength is at the 8th-level intermediate Emperor spiritual master level. Jason has leapfrogged the level to perform the 100 Forbidden Spirits with both hands and arms. It was difficult in the past. Under the action, he had already suffered a lot of trauma. Jason stood there calmly. Under everyone's surprised gazes, the man in black's wide eyes closed directly, and then he collapsed to the ground. This what did Master Jason do to the man in black? Everyone stared blankly at this scene. The power of this man in black, especially the shocking assassination before the previous, it has already been deeply engraved in everyone's heart. Everyone present put themselves in his shoes and thought that if they swapped their positions with Jason, they would definitely not be able to escape the fatal blow. Even the 2 7th-level Imperial spiritual masters among the guests thought so. However, such a powerful killer was completely knocked unconscious after being slapped on the body several times by Jason. Such a hand caused a chill that quietly rose from the hearts of everyone. The reason why these people came to the Kingdom of Orlando was because of the war between the Todd family and the Dawes family. Later, they heard about Jason's attainments in elixirs and wanted to get acquainted with him. However, after Jason and Renault returned, everyone focused more on Renault, who had advanced to the 8th level of low-level Emperor Lingmu. But now, their evaluation of Jason was different. According to the intelligence, they all know that Jason is only 21 years old now. At such a young age, he is so powerful. What kind of state will he reach in a few years? Everyone couldn't help but tremble in their hearts. And when Jason left the man in black behind, the battle that took place at the door of the Todd family mansion also attracted the attention of all the powerful men in the royal city. In particular, Renault's roar and the earth-shattering spiritual power fluctuations immediately made these strong men wonder what was happening to the Todd family now. For a moment, the powerful men from all the major forces in the mainland quietly arrived not far away and focused their attention on Jason at the entrance of the mansion. In the palace of the Kingdom of Orlando, Leesant also came to the square outside the main hall, looking at the location of the Todd family mansion with surprise on his face. "Lin, go and see what happened?" Leesant said in a low voice. "Yes." Lin said indifferently, and then his whole body instantly turned into a fiery red stream of light and disappeared from the square, flying towards the Todd family's mansion. "Let's go back." Leesant walked back to the hall with concern in his heart. Buzz. At this moment, an extremely obscure spiritual power wave came from the inner hall deep in the palace, and it disappeared in an instant. Huh? A faint black shadow suddenly appeared beside Leesant. It was the shadow that guarded Leesant every step of the way. "Your Majesty," there was a wave of spiritual power coming from the direction of the inner hall of the palace. According to the intensity observation, the opponent is extremely strong and should be a powerful 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master. Shadow frowned and said in a deep voice to Leesant, "A voice came out of my ear." "In the direction of the inner hall? Isn't that the Longhua Hall, where the kingdom's treasure house is?" Leesant's expression suddenly changed. "Shadow, come and have a look quickly." "Your Majesty, your safety, don't worry about me, hurry up and take a look," Leesant said anxiously. The kingdom's treasury contains all the treasures of the Kingdom of Orlando over the years, and many of them are very important items for the kingdom. Nexant cannot let any of them slip by. "Yes, Your Majesty." Shadow agreed helplessly, and his whole body dissipated in the air, turned into a gust of wind, and swept towards the inner hall. As a wind spiritual master, Shadow was naturally very fast, and he arrived at the treasure house of Longhua Palace in a matter of seconds. Seeing the falling scene in front of him, Shadow's face suddenly changed. At the entrance of the Longhua Hall treasure house, a group of palace guards fell there in a mess, covered in blood. At the doorstep, the guard guarding the treasure house died there with a black face. Their eyes widened. There was an extremely frightened expression in his eyes. As the treasure house of the Kingdom of Orlando, Longhua Palace is extremely tightly guarded. The two guards at the entrance of the treasure house are both 6th-order spiritual masters, but they were killed here without any sound. "Who is it?" At this moment, Shadow suddenly felt a soft spiritual power, which suddenly shot from the side. Boom! The long sword in Shadow's hand suddenly slashed out, and the powerful spiritual power exploded. Shadow felt an extremely cold force instantly invade his body, and then the whole person was thrown away heavily, with blood in his mouth, spurting out wildly. "Jia Jia." Not far away, a man in black in a cloak laughed sinisterly, then swayed and disappeared from the scene. "Everyone, I have something to do today, so I won't send you any more gifts," Leo said to the guests present with a gloomy face at the door of the Todd family mansion. "Chief Leo, please stay, we will take our leave first." Regarding Leo's attitude, these guests did not have the slightest complaint. No matter which family encountered such a thing, they would not be happy. As for Jason's previous, that thrilling assassination, these guests couldn't help but wipe away the cold sweat. If something really happened to Jason before, I'm afraid they guys would also be in trouble. "Uncle, bring this guy in, I want to see look, who wants my Jason's life?" Besides, Jason said coldly. Of the two killers, one was slapped to death by Renault, and the other was trapped by Jason. This was the only one left alive, and it was also the reason why Jason asked Renault to show mercy before. Reason. However, Leo and others did not hold out much hope for Jason's desire to dig out information from the killer. Judging from the killer's strength and actions, he was a professional killer trained by some killer organizations, have undergone strict training since childhood, and it is simply impossible to get the news from them. Master Renaud, Master Jason, what happened before? At this moment, Lin descended from the sky, looking at the messy scene, he couldn't help but said. It's nothing, two guys with no eyes are just looking for death. After hearing everyone's narration, the stone in Lin's heart couldn't help but fall, and he followed Leo and others into the mansion. Master Lin, suddenly, a palace guard panting, he rushed to Lin. Lin, Jason and others looked at him in confusion. Lord Lin, after you left, someone broke into the palace treasure house. Lord Shadow went to stop him and took he was seriously injured and is still in a coma. He is seriously injured and unable to wake up. His Majesty Nexant wants you to go back immediately. The guard said anxiously. What? As soon as the news from the guard came out, everyone present was shocked. Jason's brows also frowned. At the same time that he was assassinated, someone broke into the palace of the Kingdom of Orlando at the same time. Was all this a coincidence or a premeditated plan? Jason and others suddenly had a doubt in their hearts. This can't be blamed on Jason and the others for being suspicious. The timing of the two events was so clever that people had to wonder. Master Jason, Lord Renaud, everyone, I'll take my leave now. Lin had a trace of worry on his face and spoke to Jason and the others. Lin, wait. Jason suddenly said from the side. He said with a serious expression, wait a moment, I will go with you. Shadow is injured, maybe I can help. Lin immediately stopped, and his eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of joy. He admired Jason's attainments in elixir science very much. If Jason were here, then Shadow's injury would be cured. The hope is even greater. Uncle, it will take at least 2 hours for this guy to wake up. You first take him to the family secret room and keep him under strict supervision. A killer like him has at least several ways to deal with the failure of his mission. You can let yourself die, and don't touch anything on him before I come back. Jason spoke to Leo again. Uncle, before I come back, I'd like you to please keep this kid under guard and not let anyone get close to him. As for the body of the guy who was killed by his father at the entrance of the mansion, you can check it carefully and see if it can be recovered. Found something? Listening to Jason's instructions, Rost and Leo, as elders, had no objection at all and nodded solemnly. Jason, don't worry, as long as I'm here, I won't let anyone touch him. Rost said fiercely. Jason was assassinated before, but he, a high-level imperial spiritual master, did not help at all. If it weren't for Jason's own strength, Jason would have been dead by now. This made Jason obtain Rost, who had received many benefits, felt ashamed. If he couldn't even accomplish Jason's current task, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to see Jason himself. Jason nodded and said to Lin, let's go. After saying that, the lightning wings behind Jason suddenly spread out, and the whole person rushed into the sky and flew towards the palace of the Kingdom of Orlando. Go away. Behind him, Renaud and Dylan also shot up into the sky. The residence of the Todd family is not far from the palace of the Kingdom of Orlando. Under the rapid flight of the lightning wings, Jason walked out and appeared above the palace in a moment. His spiritual consciousness passed through the palace, and suddenly, after finding the location of Lecent and others, they settled down in front of a large hall. Lord Lin, Master Jason, Lord Renaud. At this moment, the front of the hall was filled with palace guards who were waiting in full formation, and they all looked fiercely. The guards were all very familiar with Jason and Renaud. When they saw the three of them falling from the sky, they immediately spoke respectfully. Where are your Majesty and Shadow? Where are the people? Lin said in a serious voice. Master Lin, your Majesty is in the bedroom, and Master Rudolph is treating Master Shadow inside. His Majesty ordered, if you come back, sir, let the villain take you in immediately. There are guards there. Led by the leader, Jason and his entourage immediately walked into the palace. Outside a room in the main hall, Lecent was walking back and forth anxiously. When he saw Di Lin appearing, he immediately said, "Di Lin, can you finally back?" But the next moment, when he saw Jason and Renault behind Di Lin, Lee Sin's face suddenly showed a hint of surprise. "Master Jason, Mr. Renault, why are you two here? Your Majesty Lee Sin, my father, and I heard what happened here, so come and take a look," Jason said. Okay, Master Jason, it would be great to have you here." There was an excited look on Lee Sin's face, and his original anxiety was reduced a lot at this moment. Under the leadership of Lee Sin, everyone walked into the room and saw several elixirs from the kingdom's elixir hall, headed by Rudolph, looking at the shadow on the hospital bed with sad faces, unable to do anything. Many of them are Jason's acquaintances, such as Master Inez, Master Blue, and others, and Saha and Bisfam, who have become 5th-level intermediate elixir masters, are also among them. Jason. When they saw Jason, they all had expressions of surprise and excitement on their faces, just like a person who was lost on the sea and saw the lighthouse guiding the direction in the distance. The feeling of finding hope emitted from the inside out. "By the way, how is Shadow doing now?" Jason asked. "Master Jason, the injury on this shadow is extremely serious. From our observation, it seems that some kind of spiritual power has invaded the body. That power is extremely powerful. The few of us are really, Rudolph and others," there was a look of shame on their faces. They had already examined Shadow before, but they found it extremely difficult to deal with Shadow's injuries. They could only use some of the most basic medicines and give Shadow a simple treatment first. "Treatment? Let me see." Jason nodded without saying anything and came to Shadow's bed. Rudolph and others all moved out of the way so that Jason could have enough space. For a moment, everyone's eyes in the entire room were focused on Jason. His eyes showed great expectation. Jason has also seen the appearance of Shadow. He is a middle-aged man in the prime of his life. His face is quite handsome, giving people a sense of fortitude. When Augustus and others from the Daos family came, Shadow X Lele also helped Jason a lot. But now the shadow in front of Jason is extremely haggard, his face is sallow, and his lips are dry. His eyes are closed, and he has long lost the strong feeling before, like a sick person. Like a blind old man. Without any hesitation, Jason directly released his spiritual sense to observe the shadow in front of him. "Hey!" Just a little investigation, Jason couldn't help but make a sound of surprise. In Shadow's body, an extremely cold force was rampaging wantonly, constantly eroding Shadow's vitality. What surprised Jason was that the attribute of this force turned out to be an extremely rare dark attribute power. This discovery immediately made Jason frown. Among all attributes of spiritual power, the dark attribute is undoubtedly the most troublesome for elixir masters. It has some weird properties that are not as easy to dispel as ordinary spiritual power. Just like when Wayne was cursed by Hague and the death curse by Prince Dios, the healer was more helpless than ordinary damage. After a while, Jason withdrew his right hand, looked at the shadow, and fell into deep thought. For ordinary elixir masters, dark attribute damage is difficult to treat, but for Jason, a 9th-level elixir master in his previous life, it is just troublesome and not particularly difficult. Jason's every move made everyone present extremely nervous, and Nexent didn't even dare to breathe, looking at Jason intently. Now after Jason retracted his hand, Nexent immediately said anxiously, "Master Jason, how is Shadow?" Jason frowned and said, "Your Majesty Lee Sin, according to my inspection, this shadow should have been attacked by a 7th-level dark-type Imperial Spiritual Master to become what it is now, and this 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master, the energy remaining in Shadow's body is extremely strong and is still eroding Shadow's vitality. If the dark spiritual power in his body has not been eliminated by this time tomorrow, I'm afraid Shadow," Jason said here and said he didn't continue, but everyone present already understood what he meant. Can Master Jason's shadow be saved? Lee Sin's heart couldn't help but sink. He spoke with great concern, with a hopeful plea in his eyes. As his personal bodyguard, Shadow has always been his right-hand man. Lee Sin also trusted him extremely. Now that he heard about Shadow's life crisis, Lee Sin's heart suddenly felt like a knife. Your Majesty, don't worry. Jason frowned and said, I have a way to cure the shadow, but some auxiliary materials are not so easy to find. Of course, Jason has a way to cure the shadow, but what he is worried about is the elixir. Materials. In fact, if dark-type wounds really need to be cured, it is not difficult to treat them with divine attributes. Spiritual potions with light attributes can purify the dark-type spiritual power, but during treatment, they cannot be treated like this. It is good that the light system and the dark system are in conflict with each other, but in a situation like Shadow's serious injury, and the remaining dark system energy in the body is extremely powerful, if he takes a light system treatment potion rashly, when two different attributes of power interact with each other in his body, when it was resolved, the powerful force generated was enough to kill him in an instant. What kind of material, Master Jason? Just tell me, I will try my best to find it. Lei Chenti Wujing spoke firmly. Jason nodded and said, Lei Chenti, the main material used to heal the shadows is a 7th level light spiritual core. As soon as Jason said these words, Lee Sin's face suddenly changed, and his heart that had been bowing sank. A 7th level spiritual core can be regarded as a national treasure in a kingdom like Orlando. However, with the Kingdom of Orlando's more than 600 years of management, it does not mean that it cannot be obtained, but the light spiritual core that Jason needs. But Lee Sin was stunned for a moment. Seeing Lee Sin's expression, Jason said, Your Majesty Lee Sin, you don't have to worry about this main material, I have it with me. While speaking, Jason shook his left hand slightly, and a spiritual staff exuding a strong sacred aura appeared in front of everyone. This was a spiritual staff engraved with a large number of spiritual runes. On the head of the spiritual staff, at the bottom, there is a pure white spiritual core as big as a fist, exuding a strong aura of light. It is a 7th level light spiritual core. Seeing the nervous monthly ticket list, the young master smiled helplessly. Today at noon, at that time, the junior division, who ranked 8th in the category, was still ahead by many votes. But now, in the evening, the next one has already caught up to the nearest junior division and is only 1 vote away from the junior division. It seems that if he continues, he will be beaten. People exceed. Is it possible that no matter how hard the young master works this month, no matter how hard he works, he is destined to be the fate of a supporting role? You know, there is only a few votes difference, but the meaning of the representatives is very different. One is on the list and the other is not on the list. It's just a few votes. Because of sitting for a long time, Shasher's frozen shoulder, it happened again, and it hurt a little, but I had to persist. I am not saying this to win sympathy, but just to tell everyone a fact. I will tell everyone about Shasher's difficulties and persistence. Now there are only 4 hours until July. No matter what the final outcome is, today's 4th update will definitely be fulfilled. There are 4 hours left and we are still in the lead. Could it be that these last 4 hours are going to make our little division fall behind? The young master is not willing to give in, not willing to give in. This spiritual staff was the weapon of Herbert, the great elder of the Bella family and the leader of Chaos and the 7th level intermediate imperial master. After Herbert was killed by Renault, this spiritual staff also fell into Jason's hands. Excuse me, Master Jason, what do you mean? Seeing Jason take out the spiritual staff, the expressions of Lee Sin and others present changed. As the king of the Kingdom of Orlando, Lee Sin's vision, it doesn't mean that they are not high, and Rudolph and others, as masters of elixirs, also have a very clear understanding of some treasures. From the complex spiritual patterns engraved on the spiritual staff in Jason's hand and the 7th level light system inlaid with spiritual cores, look, you can tell. The spiritual staff in Jason's hand is at least an intermediate level mystic grade spiritual weapon or above. Because of the special nature of the light system, materials and spiritual cores of this attribute are extremely rare on the mainland. A spiritual staff like this inlaid with a 7th level light system spiritual core is much more valuable than the 7th level light that is just a material. The value of the spiritual core is not at the same level at all. In addition, light-based weapons are extremely rare on the mainland. If this spiritual staff is auctioned on the mainland, some light-based spiritual masters will take a fancy to it. Its price is not even lower than some ordinary spiritual weapons. However, according to Jason's intention, he wants to take the light spiritual core directly from the head of the spiritual staff and give it to the shadow for treatment. In this way, although the remaining materials can still be sold at a good price, compared with the complete spiritual staff, they are not much different from waste. Master Jason, I won't talk about your great kindness. I, Nexante, will keep this in my heart. Leichanti was not a hesitant person, and did not shirk at all. Although he knew that this would be too much of a favor to Jason. However, for the sake of Shadow's safety, Leicant still gritted his teeth and firmly agreed. Your Majesty Leicant, what is my great kindness? My spiritual core is used to treat shadows, and it has nothing to do with you. Jason laughed out loud because he didn't want Nexant to be under too much pressure. Moreover, when Augustus and others came, Nexant's attitude also helped the Todd family and Jason greatly. Jason is an extremely grateful person. As long as others help him a little, he will remember it in his heart. Although Herbert's wand is precious, Jason can't use it at all. Even if it can be used in order to save Shadow, he will take it out without hesitation. This is Jason's principle of life and his belief. Some people may call him stupid, but this is who he is. Leicant smiled and said nothing. No one here is an idiot. Just remember the great kindness in your heart. There is no need to talk about it all the time. Your Majesty Leicant, although I have the main material here, but the rest of the material, they are all very cherished. Especially the most important auxiliary material, the blessing stone. The rest of the materials are okay. Although they are rare, they can usually be found. But this blessing stone is quite rare. I am afraid that in a short time, having said this, Jason's tone also became gloomy. The blessing stone is a rather rare jade stone that can dilute various opposing negative elements. Although the level is not high, because of its rarity, it is quite popular on the mainland. It is rare. The injury suffered by Shadow was the dark spiritual power poured into it by a 7th-level dark-type Imperial spiritual master. General 6th-level light-based spiritual potions are not completely effective on them. Therefore, Jason wanted to prepare the medicine, is a 7th-level Emperor-level Holy Light Potion. As a 7th-level Imperial potion, this Holy Light Potion is specially used to dispel various negative states in the spiritual master's body, various impurities, etc., so that the spiritual master's body can be purified to the healthiest state, let alone a spiritual master. The dark energy of a 7th-level Imperial spiritual master, even the dark energy of an 8th-level Dark Emperor spiritual master, can generally be purified by it. It's just that the dissolution of these two types of light and dark energy cannot be sustained by the strength of a low-level Shadow 7th-level Emperor spiritual master, so the blessing stone must be used to dilute the damage caused by the two types of energy. Blessing stone. After hearing Jason's words, Leicant, who was still worried at first, was dumbfounded. The expression on his face was extremely strange, as if he had heard something incredible. He spoke carefully, with a trembling tone in his voice. Master Jason, is this blessing stone a kind of dark red jade with a faint blue texture? Yes, is a kind of dark red jade with a faint blue texture. Dark red jade, what? His Majesty Leicant Jason's face couldn't help but be stunned. Master Jason, please wait a moment. Leicant hurried out without saying a word. After a moment, he held something in his hand. He walked in with a jade box. Look. Leicant handed the jade box to Jason's hand with anticipation. This, haha. Seeing the jade box in Nexant's hand, Jason's face immediately burst into a smile. With his eyesight, he could naturally see at a glance that the material of this jade box was exactly the blessing stone he needed. He couldn't help but said out of curiosity, Your Majesty Leicant, this blessing stone. Leicant had a smile on his face. Master Jason, this jade box is the box where jade and seals are held in my Orlando kingdom. The same material as the jade seal. When my father passed it to me, he told me what kind of blessing jade this material was, so after hearing your words, Master, I suddenly thought of this. At this point, Lecent came out again and said, Master Jason, is this jade box enough? If not, the jade seal of my kingdom of Orlando is also carved from this blessing stone. I can give it to you. Bring all the jade seals of the kingdom to Master Jason to prepare? After hearing Lecent's words, Rudolph and others around him were dumbfounded, with incredible expressions in their eyes. The jade seal usually represents the orthodoxy of a kingdom, but His Majesty Lecent was willing to take out all the jade seal for the shadow, which shocked Rudolph and others. Enough, enough. Jason waved his hands repeatedly. Even Jason was surprised by Nexent's courage. In fact, with the current situation of the Kingdom of Orlando, the low-level Shadow Emperor Spiritual Master can no longer play a decisive role. However, it is extremely rare for monarchs and ministers to be like Lecenti. Since there are even now that the blessing stones have been found, everything is easy to handle. Although the remaining materials are precious, as the King of Lecent and the hundreds of years of collections of the Kingdom of Orlando, half an hour later, Jason needs the elixir materials all appeared in front of him. After all the materials were gathered, Jason immediately came to the Elixir Palace laboratory in King Orlando's palace. As the most top elixir laboratory in the Kingdom of Yeeting, the equipment in this everything. Master Jason, there is a 5th-level alchemist master in our kingdom. If you want to remove the spiritual core from this spiritual staff, I can ask the alchemist master to come over. The damage to your spiritual staff can be reduced to master. At the very least, if you find any light-based spiritual core in the future, it will be easier to restore the spiritual staff. Seeing Jason taking out the spiritual staff in front of the laboratory, Lecent suggested. Rudolph and others were also on the side. Nodding secretly, weapons like spiritual staffs are much more difficult to make than ordinary spiritual swords, because the spiritual core, materials, and formation patterns need to be closely combined to achieve maximum effectiveness. Like this, for a spiritual staff, it would be easy to simply break off the spiritual core with brute force, but once the connection point between the spiritual pattern and the spiritual core is destroyed, such a spiritual staff will basically be scrapped, and if an alchemist master handles it, he can preserve the spirit pattern as intact as possible, which will bring great convenience to future repairs. Of course, facing the spiritual staff in Jason's hand that is comparable to an Earth-grade spiritual weapon, the kingdom's 5th-level alchemist master is only much better than ordinary people using brute force to break it apart. After all, with his 5th-level strength, he is still unable to do it completely. Such a complex spiritual pattern circuit is well preserved. However, what made Rudolph and others feel incredible was that just after Lecent finished speaking, Jason's right hand holding the spiritual staff suddenly trembled. Before anyone could react, the head of the spiritual staff suddenly the 7th-level light spiritual core, like a ripe fruit, naturally fell from the head of the spiritual staff and was caught by Jason in his hand. As for the remaining part of the spiritual staff in Jason's right hand, after losing the light spiritual core, the light immediately dimmed, but the staff still faintly exuded a faint wave of pure spiritual power. Generally, the spiritual staff will become an ordinary material after the spiritual core is removed. However, Jason's situation only occurs when all the formation patterns on the spiritual staff are well preserved and there is no trace of damage. Resonance between the formations will occur. The result. This, Rudolph and others all had their eyes widened, and their mouths were wide open with disbelief in their eyes. They all knew about Jason's attainments in elixirs, but when had Jason become so strong in alchemy? With just a slight shake, the 7th-level spiritual core from the head of the spiritual staff, which is comparable to an Earth-grade spiritual weapon, was completely removed. Even some 7th-level alchemist masters cannot achieve this kind of strength, right? After spending so much time with Jason, Rudolph and the others didn't think Jason was just lucky. Your Majesty Lecent, please close the door to the laboratory when you go out. Jason ignored everyone's surprise and spoke calmly to Lecent. Oh. Lecent nodded hurriedly. Although Jason's words were abrupt, everyone understood what he meant. It was obvious that he didn't want everyone to watch him prepare. In an instant, everyone walked out of the laboratory, the door was closed, and Jason was the only one left in the entire laboratory. If under normal circumstances, there was such an opportunity to prepare an imperial potion, Jason would definitely use the spirit. It is prepared by combining Shirlu Ling pharmacy and technological Ling Ling pharmacy. But saving people is like putting out fires. Shadow's illness will get worse if one more second passes. Because of time, Jason will definitely use technological Ling Ling this time. Pharmaceutical preparation, prepared it as quickly as possible. Feeling the quiet laboratory, Jason took a deep breath, and then a gleam of light suddenly burst out in his eyes. His eyes were extremely peaceful. His hands instantly turned into countless high-speed movements. After images of a large number of elixir materials that were originally placed quietly on the experimental table, at this moment, all suddenly suspended in midair. As the light circulated, Jason began to prepare the holy light potion,